It's so much easier to criticize someone after they've gone through something because they haven't acted the way they ought to. They haven't acted like a victim, or they didn't respond this way. It's easier to do that when they're not in that situation. It's easier to criticize someone when you're not the one going through it. However, when you're going through the emotions, some people freeze. Freezing is a thing. Yes, some people are gonna fight and scream at him and say, "Get away from me." Other people are gonna run away and fly away. That's great. But other people really freeze. Other people awkwardly laugh because they don't know what the heck is going on. And they're in this weird space where their brain is just trying to compute everything together. So it is okay for you to realize this was inappropriate at a later time. I don't care if it's a day after, a month after, a week after, even a year after. It is all right for you to realize this was inappropriate and it needs to be addressed. Hello and welcome to Kitchen Table Advice. My name is Paola and I am the host of this podcast. This podcast is a safe place where you can ask for any advice you want. It can be relationship advice, both platonic or romantic, career advice, or life advice. I wanted to create a safe place where you can ask for your advice without fear. My purpose here is to serve as a guide and give you a different perspective for you to eventually both find your purpose in life as well as your voice. As a reminder, every name will be anonymous and your identity will always be kept a secret. This is not professional advice and I am not a licensed therapist or psychologist. Just think of this as advice you would get from a close friend on a kitchen table. So, let's begin. Hello, my wonderful gems. How are you? I hope you're doing amazing. If you're a returning gem, welcome back. If you're new here, hello, how are you? Make sure you start the vibe, and if you like what you're listening to, then please feel free to like and subscribe to this channel. So, as usual, we just jump into the first story of the episode. For this first story, I am going to put a trigger warning. There seems to be some instances of inappropriate touch. I don't know how deep they are going, so trigger warning right now for inappropriate touch. She is of age, though. But trigger warning for inappropriate touch. If you're not in the right mind frame to listen to that, then please just feel free to skip this whole episode entirely. All right, so we'll jump into the first story. The title is I Got Touched by a Friend Inappropriately, but He Keeps Defending Himself. I Need Help. Hello, I'm a 23-year-old woman and I got touched about 2 months ago by a guy friend, a 21-year-old man of mine, who invited me to go watch a movie with him. After a lot of persuasion from his part, I went with him, but he touched my thighs, but I pushed his hand away. He did make me feel uncomfortable, and I cried to sleep that night, thinking, why would he touch me like that? I should have stopped talking to him then and there, but I was in a lonely place and he gave me a lot of attention at that time. I desperately needed a friend and someone to talk to, and he gave me just that. I was going through a post breakup scene. Now, a few days back, my friend told me he touched her inappropriately and kept touching her after she said no. Then we came to know that he has texted almost every girl from our batch, but two, if us were the only ones who fell, if, but two, if us were the only ones who fell for his persuasion. I don't know what she means by that, but I think she's saying her and the other girl were the only one who fell for um him, fell for his game. Not really him, but yeah. We wrote a post exposing the guy, and the guy is defending himself, saying that if he did something really bad that day, then why did I keep talking to him? What should I say to that? Everyone is blaming me for what I did, that I showed interest in talking to him and all, but I never gave him signs that made him think I wanted him. Please help. Wow. Um, I think a lot of people have gone through this, and I need you to remember it is not your fault. Everybody processes stuff differently. When stuff like this happens to anyone, regardless, we already know there's what's it called? There's fight whenever a traumatic instance happens, and we get pushed into fight, flight, or freeze mode. And apparently, there's even more than fight, flight, fight, and freeze. So there's more when something like that happens, we don't know how to react, And some people may even laugh it off, but they're really uncomfortable. Just because they're laughing it off doesn't mean they don't think the touch was inappropriate. Just because you're going along with it, your brain is still trying to process everything. So I'm not going to tell you, however you interpret a scene and however you process that scene is unique to you. However, now that you've come to the realization that it was inappropriate, it is inappropriate. Regardless of what anybody says. Yes, they can say, why did you keep talking to him? You didn't process it at that time. It took you time for you to process everything that happened to you. And now you're coming forward with, oh my gosh, this thing actually happened to me. It's okay. We process stuff at different interval, and however you process and interpret something is not wrong. So I don't want you to think the way you acted was wrong. You were still processing the scene, and like you stated, you were in a lonely place. You just wanted companionship, and maybe you gave this guy the benefit of the doubt. I always say never give men the benefit of the doubt, ever. I don't care. Even if it's an accident, don't. But that's just where I stand. You gave him the benefit of the doubt because he was a friend, and you may not have interpreted the scene how the way it is. And now that your friend came up with the same scene, you're like, oh my goodness, this was not an accident. I didn't imagine it. This is his MO, and this is kind of what he does to get girls into compromising situation. It is okay for you to come to that realization at a later point in time. It is all right. So I just need you to realize, if you have ever been in this situation before, or if this is you, the way you've processed it and your mind frame is okay. I don't care what anybody says. Well, you shouldn't have. Well, they're not in in that realization. It's so much easier to criticize someone after they've gone through something because they haven't acted the way they ought to. They haven't acted like a victim, or they didn't respond this way. It's easier to do that when they're not in that situation. It's easier to criticize someone when you're not the one going through it. However, when you're going through the motions, some people freeze. Freezing is a thing. Yeah, some people are gonna fight and scream at him and say, get away from me. Other people are gonna run away and fly away. That's great. But other people really freeze. Other people awkwardly laugh because they don't know what the heck is going on. And they're in this weird space where their brain is just trying to compute everything together. So it is okay for you to realize this was inappropriate at a later time. I don't care if it's a day after, a month after, a week after, even a year after. It is all right for you to realize this was inappropriate, and it needs to be addressed. You didn't process it at the time. You were in a bad headspace. You had just broken up with your boyfriend. You were in a vulnerable situation and you needed comfort. Unfortunately, he was there ready to prey on you. Listen, that is exactly what happened. All right, he was there ready to prey on you, and you didn't know how to process it because you just woke up with your boyfriend. You were in a bad mind headspace. You were not ready for that, and he took your vulnerability as an opportunity to be a predator. That's exactly what happened. So to the people who are saying that, just tell them that. And yes, they may disagree with you because our society loves blaming victims, especially when they're women. Okay. Yes, there's some male victims who are also blamed, but especially when they're women, is always trying to nitpick. But I just need you listening to this, you who have gone through this, to realize the way you have processed this situation is not wrong. It is all right for you to come to a conclusion later on that this thing has happened to you, and take the necessary steps to mitigate that situation. That is okay. That is all right. Not all of us are going to fight our predators. Not all of us are going to run away and never contact the person. Life is much more nuanced than that. Things don't just happen in a vacuum. This in the way you have reacted to this is not because of the way you reacted to this is not because you were interested in the guy. No, it's because in that circumstance, after a breakup, you were in a vulnerable situation. So your reaction to him is not going to be your baseline reaction. I'm just going to say baseline because I don't really think there's a normal. It would not have been your baseline reaction because of what has happened to you. You reacted this way. So it's so unfair how we try to lump these people into category. We try to make everything fit perfectly, whereas life is nuanced. Life is full of contradictions and it's nuanced, and things just happen. All right. So I just need you to realize that the way you tackled this on, that was actually pretty brave. Yes, you put up with him because of what had just happened to your life. That is okay. That's all right. But however, now that you came to the realization that he is a predator, and not only did he inappropriate touch you, but inappropriate touch another person, you went ahead and you did the necessary steps. So anyone who is putting in their 2 cents about how you should have acted, just tune them out. Tune them out. Because now that you've came to the realization that this is a wrongful act, you did what you could have done at that point in time. You can try to tell them about your mindset, and some are going to not take that as an option. But at the end of the day, I just need you to be content with where you are right now. And if you need to take other actions to bring him to justice, by all means do that. But just remind yourself that just try to rid yourself of those, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. No, you acted the way you acted because of the place you were in at that time. That's not a knock on you. It was an event that happened, and you acted a certain way because either for XYZ reason or 1 2 3 with it reason, it does not matter. You acted a certain way, the events has already happened. Now what can you do at this moment in time that you've come to the realization that this was not an appropriate event? You expose them. What more can you do? You can try to warn other women, you can try to warn other girls, but you've literally done your part. So to anyone who's trying to blame you, just tune them out and keep going about your life. Obviously, it goes without saying, don't talk to this person, cut them out of your life, and proceed with your life. So that is where I'm gonna end my advice for this story. We're gonna take a break right now and come back with the second story of the episode. All right, we are back with the second story of the episode, and the title is How Do You Deal with Having Your Parents Face If They Were Abusive? Okay, let's dive in. I am a 28-year-old woman and I have a complicated relationship with my father. He always tried to do the best for me financially, but was often abusive and explosive to me when I was a kid. I was never physically abused, but I was often threatened with it. So now, as I get older, I see how much I resemble my father, and it makes it hard for me to even look at myself sometimes. Do you know a way to tackle with this? I would just suggest therapy in this point in time. Unfortunately, we don't get to choose our parents, and the way they raise us has some long-term ramifications on how we go out into the world and present ourselves into the world. But I just need you to I just need to remind you of something. Even though your father has taken care of you, even though he's done all these wonderful things, he is not you. And just because you have acted in a way your father has previously acted towards you in life, it doesn't mean that is who you are as a person. We are ever evolving and we're ever changing. So it's not too late for you to first. I love that you are aware of the situation. I love that you came into the awareness that this is not how you want to present yourself into the world. This is not how you want to act in certain situations. So your awareness is already like the first step in becoming the person you want to be. So yes, again, yes, this has happened to you. Yes, this event has happened to you. It was not right. We're not going to dispute about whether the event was right or wrong, but now what can you do with this? Now that you have this newfound awareness, what can you do? I would suggest therapy to try to unpack every single thing that happened in your childhood. I think that would be a great way to start. And I think it's also important for us to remind ourselves, regardless of how much we mirror our parents, either physically or in our mannerisms or whatever, we are not them. At the end of the day, your life is your life and your father's life is his life. The way he shows up into the world, that is how he wants to show up into the world. The way he showed up in your family, that was his choice. And the way he raised you, that was also his choice. Now that you've came into the awareness that you may exhibit some signs and symptoms that your father did during your childhood. Now what are you gonna do about it? Now the ball falls in your court. Now that you came into the awareness, you can either choose to ignore it and try to wish upon a star that eventually goes away, or you can do what you can do at this moment in time. Right now, I would suggest therapy for you to try to unpack every single thing that has happened. Yes, it is going to be a long process. Yes, finding the right therapist does take some time, but I think that you actually working towards it one step at a time is a way to try to unpack every single thing that has happened in your childhood, and for you to know it was not your fault. The way your father acted when you were a kid was not because of who you are, but because of who he is. He chose to show up the way he did when you were a kid. And now you as an adult, you get to choose the way you show up to other people. Your partner, your mother, your sisters, whoever, that is a decision for you to make. Yes, this crappy thing has happened and I would not wish this on anyone. However, now that you came to the awareness, you have to take on the mantle, you have to take on the responsibility to do something about it. So again, I would suggest therapy. That is a good way to start so you can still slowly unpack everything and basically find yourself back. Find the vibrant child you were back. Find the happy child you were before all the abuse and before everything started. So that is what I would suggest. All right. Um It's about to be a short episode. All right, so that is it for this week. Thank you so much for listening to our episode. Please let me know what you thought in the comment section below. And we get our stories on our Gmail account, which is kitchentableadvice@gmail.com. So you can send your stories there, or you can just send comments there because we know some people don't want to leave comments on the YouTube channel, and that's fine. So thank you so much for all our listeners, and we see you next week. Bye.